Okay, I'm back. This is part 2 of a 3-part series. The first one was how to make the chocolate ganache, and now I'm going to show you in short, easy steps on how to ganache cake, and the one tool that I use that will help you get your sharp edges. The first thing I need to do is show you, this is the ganache. It's set overnight. I've brought it back up to room temperature, and depending on whether it's winter or summer, your room is going to change temperature. So you may need to soften it again in the microwave, which I have. Do it in 30-second bursts, and really this is the consistency, which is what I need to show you, that you need to be able to ganache your cake successfully and easily and quickly. So that's the white, and I'll show you the chocolate. Again, it's the same. This one has hardened since I started this, so it's going to need another 30 seconds in the microwave. And as you're working on your cakes, this will harden again. So it's just a matter of going through and softening again in the microwave. That's just starting to get a little hard, so it'll move the cake crumb, and you don't want it to do that. Now, this is how I set up my cakes. There's a million ways of doing this, but this is how I do it. The two tools I use are the crank handle palette knives. I'm actually going to show you, I'm ganaching a 7-inch round cake, so I'm using a 7-inch round board. I need to secure that to my setup board. So it's just a little bit of ganache. I always use white on the bottoms, only because when I pick this up and put it on my cake board, it's easy to get rid of any white chocolate marks that will form rather than dark chocolate. So it's just a little safety thing. That sits on there and you leave it to set. I'm going to quickly set up the ganache cake, and I will come back and show you what I'm up to. Okay, so I've started layering, and I have softened my chocolate ganache. So you use the large pallet to pick it up and the small one to take it off. Now, the reason the cake is on a board is that is actually going to act as a guide for your straight sides later on, and that will make sense in a couple of minutes. So I bake my cakes to a finished trimmed height of 3 inches, and then by the time I have ganached and covered, they finish at 4 inches. So if you're trying to work out dimensions, that's what you're looking at. Don't worry about it going over the sides. And all my cakes this week are marble, so I've had to show you white and dark chocolate because all my marble cakes have white and dark chocolate, and this one is actually chocolate raspberry. So that's the top. So now you go around, you just smooth off. And now it doesn't matter if you move it. So I'm just getting rid of that excess. Now, the thing to be conscious of, you've got a gap here. You need to make sure there is no air bubbles in there when you go around to do your next layer of ganache, because especially in summer, if you've got an air pocket in there, that will expand and then it'll push the side of your fondant out. Now, this is the trick. This is how you get straight sides. Just go down to your hardware and get this. So now this is the board you work against, and I will ganache the sides and then take this off. But for this to work so you get no lumps at all, you need about, say, 4 millimeters gap between the cake and the side of this, which I haven't got on this 7-inch, because this 7-inch board I'm using isn't actually 7 inches, it's just under, which is really frustrating. So I'm going to have to go around and trim my cake. I now have a new supplier that actually has 7-inch boards. But this isn't one of them. So there, I think you can see, there you can see the gap. So that will actually fill with chocolate ganache, and I won't get any lumps or bumps in between because I'm going to have this beautiful smooth surface of chocolate ganache. So I need to put this cake, I set them in the freezer because it's just quicker. They're only in there for a few minutes, and then I will trim that cake, and then I'll come around and I'll show you how I ganache. And we actually go around and take the ganache off with this top and bottom. So I'll do this and I'll come back. Okay, the cake's been in the freezer now for, it was about 10 minutes, which just makes it firm enough for me to work against when I'm trimming. So it's been trimmed, and this is what I want to show you. You can see how there's a distance. Can you, maybe not. Yep, you can see how there's a distance between me pushing this up against the edge of the board and the side of the cake. And that is what we're going to fill with ganache. I shall do that. and I'm going to use white. So again, it's using the the large crank handle, and all you're doing is going around. And you can be fairly generous, but again make sure all those air pockets are filled, and I'm pushing this chocolate ganache into it. Okay, when I'm doing this, I've got 16 cakes this week. I tend to do everything in a different step, so I would have, you know, maybe 4 or 5 cakes in the freezer at the moment, setting up for the next stage. And it probably would have been easy if I'd shown you on a cake that fits its board, but it shows you that it doesn't matter what you start with, you can end up with the perfect cake in the end. So I'm just taking that up over the edge of the cake. You can see that's quite rough at the moment. Now I just need to put some on the top. And when it's this size, I do tend to use a smaller palette knife. The larger one's good for bigger cakes. So again, just smoothing that off, taking it over the sides. Make sure you've got a good seam there with no air pockets. And this is done in stages, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the excess off, and then I'm going to put it in the freezer to set, and then I'll come back. Now, it's just a matter of using this. Now let me just make sure I've got this in view. The trick is you've got to keep it straight up and down. It's very easy to just push it in a little bit, and then you're going to get sides of the cake that go in. So I use my back fingers to keep this down flat against the table. This front edge goes in against the board, and that's why each cake's on a board. And that's what you're going to move against. So if I go in, I'm not used to doing this at this angle. And this is just a quick one to take around. So then I take excess off. And you can see instantly you've got nice straight sides. But you'll also notice here there's a little gap. So I didn't have enough on there because it's not smooth. You can see that there's a little ridge there. But I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to get this in the freezer to set. And then I will come back and put another coat on it. Okay, to do the tops, sorry, I'm working in front of the camera. That's uneven, fairly obvious. I just bring in from the edges with the palette knife. This is no different. I mean, I've never ever done a cake with buttercream, to be honest. We use chocolate ganache in Australia, so I'm assuming it's identical. Although I've never seen anyone use one of these. I've seen them use cake scrapers and everything. But I think having this, with this great edge that sits flat, you can't go wrong. You cannot not get a straight side. So that's going to, just need to fill that little bit there. And that will do for now. I shall put that in the freezer, we'll set it up. And then we do a second coat, skim it, and it will almost be ready. Bring this up to you. There you can. See how I've actually haven't put enough on that particular spot there, so we need to go over that and fill it. We also need to come back and do this top edge. So it's just exactly the same as what you did before. Don't worry about if you've got too much, because the scraper will just take off what it doesn't need. Now I don't think I mentioned at the beginning of this that you saw me ganache the cake board to the setup board, but then I also put ganache down on top of the cake board when I put my first slice of cake down, so that holds it to there. You can see I'm being quite rough again. Am I in shot? Yes. Okay. So you can tell, I mean, most of it's just visual what you're doing, whether you've got an even coat on the top. And always bob down to eye line so you can see, or tilt the cake up into view. You come up with your own method. Okay, so this is getting quite firm now, so when I use this for my next cake, I will actually put the ganache back in the microwave for 30 seconds just to soften it slightly. A little bit off there. The other thing to keep in mind is that your surface should be flat in the first place, which mine isn't. It's developed a dip over the year with all my rolling and pushing down, so I need to get it re-supported. But as long as you know that, you're alright. Okay, so I'm just going to work on the angle I normally work. Take it off. And then there's just one stage left after this. You need to hot water the cake with a spatula. And it's the water and the chocolate that combine that just give you this little edge or a little crust. It's not really a crust because you can't actually feel it, but it just gives you a little surface that acts as another resistance when you're putting your fondant on the top. So I'm just taking the rest of this off. And I shall bring the top in, and then I will take the top off. This will all get smoothed out again in a minute. Got a little gap there that somehow has happened, so I patch that. On there, could probably do a little edge there. The thing is, when you're icing, I use about, say, 4 millimeters. My icing is rolled to. So if you've got inconsistencies, that 4 millimeters is going to show it. So you need to make sure that it doesn't. So any of those little holes that are left or inconsistencies will show up. Okay, I'm just going to take this off in one go. And remember to keep the back of this down so you're not going in. Now, top is taken off the same, so put more on the top than you think you're going to need. The other good thing about using one of these is that they have the measures on them. So that is finishing exactly 4 inches. So then it will just have the few mils of the thickness of the fondant. Check this by eye, and that is pretty level. Needs a little bit out the centre. And I will put this in the freezer again so that I can just take the last little surface off, and then I shall hot water it and show you the finish. Okay, this is the last bit. I have a container here of boiling hot water, and you just go over the top surface. I've already done the sides, and it'll give you a chance to see whether you've missed any spots or not. So it's just like when you're putting the chocolate on. Go around the sides, do the top, but don't pick it up and drop some water on there because it will melt the chocolate and then you'll end up with a dip. So over the sides, and then it's just a matter of cleaning up the board. That has to be spotless because you're actually going to cover the cake on this board, so you don't want any excess fondant picking up leftover chocolate. And then this sits overnight to dry. And then I will now cover the rest of my cakes for the week, and I will come back tomorrow and show you how I use my cake smoothers to get a sharp edge.